Hello everyone. In today's session, we will discuss about Russian formalism. Russian formalism was an influential school of literary criticism in Russia from 1910 to 1930. It was a reaction against Russian symbolist movement. In literary theory, formalism refers to critical approaches that analyze, interpret, or evaluate the inherent features of a text. These features include not only grammar and syntax but also literary devices such as meter, rhythm, rhyme, tropes, figure of speech, etc. And it is also called East European formalism. It originated in Moscow and Petersburg in the 1920s. The movement itself became institutionalized by the year 1919 with the establishment of Opposite Group or Opposite Society. Opposite Group was Petersburg Society for the study of poetic language. The theory of formation or the theory of formalism was a result of the discussions that emerged from two groups. Two groups are the opposite group and the other group is the Moscow Linguistic Circle. So, the formalism or the emergence of formalism is based on the discussions of these two groups, opposite group and Moscow Linguistic Circle. Opposite group founded by Viktor Shklovsky in 1916 and the Moscow Linguistic Circle founded by Roman Jakobson in 1914. The movement falls into three periods. Three periods are, first period is from 1916 to 1921, when the focus was on poetic language and prose composition. So, in the first period, which was from 1916 to 1921, the focus was on poetic language and prose composition. In the second period, 1921 to 1928, there was a serious attempt to re-examine many literary problems. Then the final and third period is started from 1928 to 1935, when the movement disbanded or to stop existing as a group and disintegrated owing to several factors, whether it is political factors or historical, being one of them. It was suppressed under Stalin's dictatorship around 1929. After that, center of the movement moved to Czechoslovakia. Okay, Czechoslovakia. Spelling is Czechoslovakio. So, when formalism was suppressed in 1929 by the Soviet and the center moved to Czechoslovakia, then it was continued by the member of Prague Linguistic Circle, included Roman Jakobson, Jan Mukarovsky, and Rene Volek. Jan Mukarovsky spelling is Jan, Jan, Mukarovsky, Mukarovsky, and Rene Volek, Rene Rene, Volek, Wellek. So, now there are three linguistic circles. First circle or first group is the opposite group. then the Moscow circle, and then last linguistic circle named as the Prague linguistic circle. The movement, like symbolist and futurist movement, paved the way for Russian formalism. The term formalism generally denotes the kind of criticism that lays stress on the form of a work rather than on the content. So, how can we understand the Russian formalist movement in simple words? We can understand that Russian formalism or Russian formalist focuses on the form of any text, form of any literary work, rather than its content. Okay, now move on to the main critics or major critics of Russian formalism. First one is Viktor Shklovsky. Viktor Shklovsky, born in 1893 and died in 1984. He was a Russian and Soviet literary theorist, critic, and Russian formalist. And he is best known for developing the concept of Austrianic or defamiliarization. He explained this concept in the important essay Art as Technique. And art as technique is translated as art as device, which comprised the first chapter of his seminal theory of prose. Theory of prose is a work by Viktor Shklovsky, which was published in 1925. He coined the term defamiliarization or in the essay Art as Device, which was the part of theory of prose. Defamiliarization is also known as estrangement and Austriani. What is the meaning of defamiliarization or estrangement? Its meaning is to making strange, to making unfamiliar. It is the act of making common entities unfamiliar to the reader. It argues that poetic language is different from practical language. As we know that practical language is different from poetic language. So Viktor Shklovsky emphasized this statement that poetic language is different from practical language. The term was coined by Shklovsky in his essay in 1917. He stated that poetic language is fundamentally different than the language we use every day and more difficult to understand. Our practical language or ordinary language is very simple language, but poetic language is different from it. Okay, now move on to other critic, Boris Eichenbaum. B-O-R-I-S, Boris Eichenbaum. A-I-C-H-E-N-B-A-U-M. He was born in 1886 and died in 1959. Like Shklovsky, he was one of the leaders and Russian formalist group known as the Society for the Study of Poetic Language, which was founded in 1916. He wrote an important essay, The Theory of Formal Method. The Theory of Formal Method, which was published in around 1926 or 1927, it was the major work of Boris Eichenbaum. In this work, he expounding the evaluation of the central principles of formalist method. He says that the chief characteristics of the formalists was their rejection of all. His statement is ready-made aesthetics and general theories. Ready-made aesthetics and general theories. He involved with the social movement named as rootless cosmopolitan or rootless cosmopolitanism. Rootless cosmopolitanism was coined by Vissarion Belinsky. Vissarion, Vissarion. Belinsky, Belinsky. It was a pejorative refer to Jewish intellectuals and dissenters and to their lack of patriotism or lack of total allegiance with the Russian state. So, the important thing is here to know that Boris Zikenbaum is involved with social movement named as rootless cosmopolitanism. The idea of rootless cosmopolitanism is a representation of the artistic struggle for freedom of expression and dissent. So that's it for Boris Zikenbaum. Next critic is Yuri Tainyano. Yuri Tainyano, spelling is Yuri, Y-U-R-I, Yuri Tainyano, Tynyanov, Tainyano. He was born in 1894 and died in 1943. He was a Soviet writer, literary critic, translator, scholar, and screenwriter also. And he was also a member or critic of Russian formalism. In 1928, he published a famous work, Thesis on Language, Theses, Thesis on Language, with the linguistic Roman Jakobson. Thesis on Language supposed to a predecessor of structuralism. Now, let's move on to Roman Jakobson. Roman Jakobson, born in 1896 and died in 1982. He was a Russian-American linguist and literary theorist. And he was a bridge between Russian formalism and structuralism, like Yuri Tainoyon. They both are in together write a work named as Thesis on Language. He was a founder member of Moscow Linguistic Circle. As I already told you that he was a founder of Moscow Linguistic Circle, which was founded in 1914. In 1920, he moved to Czechoslovakia, and here he found the influential Prague Linguistic Circle. His paper, named as Linguistics and Poetics, delivered at a conference in 1958 and published as Style in English in 1960. After that, he developed the concept of defamiliarization and foregrounding to characterize the school of critical and literary thought of Russian formalism. Jakobson's essay, most important work, Two Aspects of Language and Two Types of Aphasic Disturbance, published in 1956. It suggests that language has a bipolar structure, oscillating between the poles of metaphor and metonymy. We find that Roman Jakobson gave his most important terms of metaphor and metonymy in this essay: two aspects of language and two types of aphasic disturbance, which was published in 1956. In this essay, he presents a theory of language based on certain empirical observations and discoveries. Metaphor and metonymy are the defining poles of language. All linguistic expression lies somewhere between these extremes. Other important work of Roman Jakobson is Fundamentals of Language. Fundamentals of Language, also published in 1956. Other is Language in Literature. Language in Literature, published in 1969. Now, key concepts given by Roman Jakobson. First concept is addresser or addressee. Addresser, A-D-D-R-E-S-S-E-R. Addresser. Addressee, A-D-D-R-E-S-S-E. In critical parlance, addresser means author or writer, and addressee means audience or reader. Means author or writer is the addresser and audience or reader is addressee. Roman Jakobson, in his essay Linguistics and Poetics, made a diagrammatic representation of the network of literary communication. He gave this concept, addresser or addressee, in this essay named as Linguistics and Poetics. And he made a diagrammatic representation of the network of literary communication. It is like in communication, as you know already, that how we can communicate to each other. So, firstly, addresser. Addresser means like a sender. For example, I am a sender. Okay, I am sending my message through live class. So it is a medium. And then addressee. Addressee means receiver. You are receiver. Okay. So firstly, when he made a network of literary communication, then it is like first addresser, then the medium of message. Medium means whether it is context, message, contact or code, etc. And then addressee. Addressee means receiver or audience or reader, etc. Okay. Then the other concept, metaphor and metonymy. In his 1956 essay, The Metaphoric and Metonymic Poles, Roman Jakobson describes the couple as representing the possibilities of linguistic selection and combination metonymy. Linguistic selection means metaphor and combination means metonymy. Here the concept of metaphor and metonymy are equivalent to condensation and displacement. Condensation and displacement are the terms given by Freud to show how our dreams work. So what is condensation? Condensation is the process by which a number of events are represented by a single image in a dream. Just like condensation, metaphor represents a number of things by using a single thing. For example, her tears were a river flowing down her cheeks. Her tears were a river flowing down her cheeks. So here, her tears are representing river. We can also understand the concept of defamiliarization here, because what is the statement of defamiliarization, or what is the meaning of defamiliarization? The meaning of defamiliarization is to make strange. When we use any poetic language, then it is different from practical language, and then it means that it is an unfamiliar language. So this language is not an ordinary one, and writer used the poetic language or something to making strange or different from ordinary language. So how can we understand metaphor in simple words? We can understand through one line, that is, it represents a number of things by using a single thing. Okay, then how can we understand metonymy with displacement? Metonymy and displacement both represent something by the name of something else. They both represent something by the name of something else. For example, we can say the White House for the US president, because the White House is the residence place of US president. Then other concept of formalism, foregrounding. What is foregrounding? Foregrounding is the act of giving prominence to some features in a work. Russian formalists and stylistic critics put the term in circulation. And the opposite term of backgrounding, the opposite term of foregrounding is backgrounding. As the name suggests, it implies to relegating features of a work to the back. Foregrounding means in the front, or backgrounding means in the back. The Prague scholar Jan Mukerowski shaped the notion of foregrounding. He shaped the notion of foregrounding into a literary concept. It literally means to bring to the front. What is the meaning of it? To bring to the front. Now, next important concept is fabula and sujet. Fabula and sujet. What is fabula? Fabula is the raw material of a story. And sujet is the way how a story is organized. Means we can say that fabula is a story or sujet is plot. Now, how can we differentiate it? Fabula is the action itself, and sujet is how the reader learns of the action. Means action is fabula, and how the reader learns of the action is sujet or plot. Let's take an example. The king died and then the queen died. It is a story. Firstly, the king died and then the queen died. So, it is a simple thing. It is a story or fabula. Then, if we say the king died and then the queen died, of grief is a plot. I'm repeating, the king died and then the queen died. It is a story or fabula. If we say the king died and then the queen died of grief, here is a reason. She died of grief. So it is plot, or we can say it is suicide. So that's it for today's lecture. We will continue with other theories in next lectures. Okay. Thank you so much.